What's up guys, it's HK Boba here, and you know what the fighting game community is weirdly obsessed with? Making tier lists. And with Naraka being a fighting game, I think it's time to make a tier list. So to kick things off, I think we're gonna do the tier list in two parts. First has to be solos, and then we'll talk about how the characters move around for threes. And then we're gonna go to talking about the weapons. So to start things off, we're gonna start by just putting, Natari right up here. Just give us a baseline, right? Everyone says Natari is pretty OP right now, and I totally agree. The fact that she can't get grapple hooked when she ults is insane. And also, the fact that she can just keep wailing on people while invisible is also pretty nuts. You can't even tell if she's doing a focus attack or not. I wish maybe if they were to balance it a little bit, you would let her be grappled while invisible, or at least make her come out of invisibility when she starts hitting people. I don't know, but there should be something done to it. Maybe they could even make it so that her blue appears when she's doing a focus attack at least, so that makes it easier to parry her while she's invisible. And then also her F allows her to teleport somewhere. You can hold it to increase the distance, and it's absolutely nuts how far it can go. Her F skill I think is probably one of the best as well, since it just has such a great ability to escape from a bad situation. You can even just mash out of it and then grapple hook somewhere. I play Matari myself in solos, and I have to say she's pretty nuts. She's won me a lot of fights. I just go invisible and start killing everyone and leave unscathed. It's insane how good she is at escaping and her survivability. So I don't think that many people will argue with me that Matari is S tier right now. Definitely one of the best characters in the game. Alright, next is Aang. Okay, so 10 high. I think he's a solid character. I don't know where to put him. Either A or B. It depends on where I start putting everyone else. So I think for now I'll put him in A. In solos, he's very good about winning those 1v1 fights, right? His bell is like a free parry. And if you catch him off guard, say you parried him, or say you grappled him and he's about to die, that bell just saves lives and it turns the tide to his favor, gives him frame advantage right away. It's such a useful F skill. But more importantly, his ultimate is pretty nuts if used right. Come on, I think people who stay in Titan form for too long, and end up dying in Titan form, like I have done, it's probably not a good idea. But I think if you just get in real quick, grab them, eat them, heal back to full, and then bail as soon as anything gets sketchy, it's just the fact that it heals them back to full the moment you switch to Titan form, that is huge. Alright, the next character we're going to talk about is actually my main. At first, I'd probably put him here. I don't like his inner fire ability. The parry it's okay. It's like a crappier version of the bell. I'm just not a huge fan of it. But the thing is, if you actually mess with his talents, and I think in the closed beta, this was his default skill, is the fireball. That fireball is insane. It does so much damage, and it knocks down, giving you a tech chase. It's extremely good, and then you end up moving him a little higher, right? I think, and then you change his ultimate, and I think he's up here. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe if there was a B plus tier. If anything, we'll put him at the top of B tier or at the bottom of A tier. So the ultimate talent I like to take is the one where he can start spamming inner fire. And if you link that in conjunction with his fireball skill, it's just so good. You can just rain down fireballs on people. It's good in threes, it's good in solos. I can't tell you how many games I've won where it's I just gotta make it to the end and hold on to my ult. And then now it's a one-on-one situation, I just pop that thing and then rain down 4 fireballs and I win. That thing is extremely good when you combo it with the right talents. So I think, but base form, he's here. But then you go into Farah Rains from Above form, he goes up to here. Alright, let's move on to Kudami. I mean, being a waifu alone, but okay, in solos, I do think she's a little bit worse than S tier. I don't think she's up to Matari's level at all, but she's a very good character. Her umbrella is just insane at helping her escape. I think the umbrella is a little hard to use, and it's not you get instant gratification from it as a good escape. You have to kind of mind game your opponent. If you compare apples to apples, right? Her F skill compared to Matari's is not as good for escape. Of course it heals you, but it still doesn't get you out of a pinch as well as some of the other characters' F skill does. Like for example, the Bell. I don't know where I would put it in comparison to the Bell, because it is better than the Bell in some ways, right? You put him in a really rough spot. Either you chase the Kurumi and don't let her heal, but then she teleports back to the umbrella, or you just let her run away. So you kind of put your opponents in a tough spot when you play around your umbrella correctly. But the fact that she can't really do anything with the umbrella out also really hurts her in solos. So I put her maybe about here, maybe below the Last Airbender and above Tarkajin. Okay, and then Viper Ning. Viper Ning is insane. Her ultimate is so good in terms of just being able to win you 1v1 fights. Especially with her, I think all these characters, you kind of just like use whatever weapon you'd like, right? But I think with Viper, to get the most out of her, I really like her with the Greatsword. I used to like her with the Greatsword because you can just charge up the strongest attack you can to whack them once you get your ult off. But now, I think with the release of the Spear, she's gotten even better. Because if you get a Dragon Thrust into the spinning combo, I think that does even more damage than a full charge Greatsword attack. And it gives you better Oki, because they're left standing, so you can still 50-50 them with either a focus attack or go back into a light attack string. So I just think with the Spear and her ultimate, she's gotten even slightly better from when she was in closed beta. And they buffed her in general, right? And her F skill is like, I know everyone focuses on her ult, but her F skill is also really good. You get that instant satisfaction of knocking them away, and you can just grapple away. I think her F skill is a better deterrent than say like Tarkaji's Fireball, because her F skill is much easier to use to hit the wider area. It doesn't do as much damage, of course, but I think especially in solos, so I'm gonna value survivability a bit over damage. So I think just in general, her kit's a little bit better than the people here, but maybe not as good as Matari's, because I think you can like really disregard positioning when you play Matari and just always go in. Whereas with Viper, you do still have to be pretty cautious, even if you have your ultimate and stuff. If you get swarmed by too many people, you don't have a get out of jail free card. Okay, and then the last character I have is Telmook. Honestly, put him maybe at the same as Tarkaji, maybe slightly better, just because his ultimate is very good at preventing people from escaping or boxing people out. If he needs a second to breathe, he can just fly away, ult, and then he can like heal up and leave out the other side. I think that's really good. One thing I kind of don't like about him is that I don't think his ultimate affects other Telmooks, where like, so that's kind of like RNG, right? If the person you're fighting happens to be the same character, your ultimate doesn't hit them, like that kind of sucks. But aside from that, I think he's a really strong character, especially if you have time to set up. But I don't like that his F skill, you don't get that instant satisfaction, right? You don't get that instant escape. It shoots you up, which if people are prepared for it, they can just grapple you as soon as you fly up, or they can shoot you, right? And then you have to shoot your G afterwards separately. I just think that that's too much setup. I think if there was a way to make it so that like, if you hold F, you don't get the tornado upwards before you can shoot out the projectile, that would be much better. I don't think he's that bad. I think he's better than base form Tarkaji, for sure. But as of right now, I'd either put him in front or behind Tarkaji. But I really haven't played him that much. I think he's the character I've played the least throughout both betas. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk about him, but at least I've played him a couple times and I've fought him enough times, so I think I'd put him maybe here. I mean, he's honestly tied with these two. If anything, to make it simpler, I'll do it like this. Because these two in A tier are definitely better than these two in B tier. So instead of having just like descending, just kind of have them like, the order doesn't matter as much. It's more like, I think these are the separations between the characters. But this is my personal opinion. If you disagree or if I missed something about a certain character, then let me know in the comments below. But let's talk about trios now. I would still leave Matari as S tier. Just because her ultimate, you can get a talent that helps her transfer her invisibility to the whole team. So I think that's just insane. Okay, in trios, I think Viper is still probably S tier. Maybe a little bit lower. I might move her to the top of A. Honestly, I don't know if the tier list changes too much, just because we switched to 3s. I think Kurumi, if she has the right talents, she's definitely at the bottom of S tier then. And then maybe I will move up Telmook, because Telmook's ultimate, if you work it with Vipers, is so deadly. Like, you just basically wipe a team, right? You enclose everyone in the sand, you run Viper's ult, everybody's dead, right? And honestly, I'm leaving him in the same spot, but I think Tian Hai also gets better in threes because your Titan form is such a good distraction, and he's just like a great tank to soak up tons of damage for your team to recuperate or whenever they're in a tight situation. So I think everyone kind of gets a little better when it's in threes. The only person that kind of stays the same, I think, is Tarkji. I still really like him. I think in a team fight, when he just fireballs a crowd, is so strong. So if anything, I would just move him up, and I don't think anyone's unviable or even that bad in threes. I think in threes, as long as you have the right team comp, every hero is just so good. So anyways, yep, so here's my tier list for threes. Let's go on to weapons. But before we do that, please smack that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps so much and I really appreciate it. And if you want to see more Naraka videos on release, subscribe with the notification bell on so you don't miss anything. Thanks. Alright, let's take a look at the weapons. For the weapons, I'm gonna start with the longsword. Oh, ignore the rarity. I just didn't want them all to be the same color, but assume they're all the same rarity. I'm gonna start with the longsword, just because it's the most basic weapon. I think it's a good place to start. And I'm gonna put that in A tier. Longsword is personally my favorite. The ranged focus attack is so useful, especially at tech chasing. It's simple to use and it does a ton of damage. And it's honestly one of the best weapons because it's semi-parry proof. If you parry it, they'll reflect the beam back at you, but it's a lot less damage than if they get the close range parry attack on you. So if you're far enough and they parry you, it's semi-safe. You also don't get disarmed. So I think just in general, the damage it does and how safe and easy it is makes it one of the best weapons in the game. And then we're gonna do all the melee weapons first, by the way, and then we'll move on to the ranged weapons. So Greatsword, I'm gonna put that here. I think the Greatsword in the right hands is extremely good, but I think the Greatsword, one of the biggest negatives with it is that you don't have a second light attack in the combo. It goes light attack into your focus attack. So you don't get that free attack. People know that once you do the first attack, they have to be ready to parry. Whereas with the other melee weapons, they get the free light attack after a light attack. So if you land any sort of light attack, like a dash attack or even just the first light attack in your combo string, you get the second one for free. Which also means you can mix that up. You can even like kind of mess with people and just do a light attack into a focus attack, because most people are waiting to try to parry on the third hit instead of thinking to parry on the second hit. So I don't know, I think just having the ability to do that guaranteed second light attack opens up so much in terms of combo and pressure that the Greatsword not having it kind of messes with it. I think the Greatsword just kind of lacks something that the others don't have, but not saying it's a bad weapon. I think I've been killed many times by Greatsword, and it's kind of difficult to parry too. The parry timing is weird against the Greatsword for me. So personally, I just don't like using it that much, and I do see it being noob friendly, yes and no. It's very useful to kill other noobs because you do so much damage. If you're going blow for blow with someone, you're gonna win if you have a Greatsword and they don't. But I think to like the mid and high level, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to land consistent blows with it, and it's very susceptible to getting kited because after one light attack, they don't have enough hits done for you to guarantee another attack, like with the longsword or katana. Speaking of which, let's talk about the katana next. I think it belongs above the Greatsword, but still not as good as the longsword, and that's because the katana's focus attack in neutral doesn't knock people down. So when you knock someone down is when you can tech chase them and go for Oki in a second hit as they wake up, right? But if you don't have that wake up mix up, katana, it's a different kind of mix up. It's a little riskier, but it's also higher reward because they're still standing when you land a focus attack. So I don't know, I think it's a little bit higher risk, higher reward. I don't know, I think I dock points for that kind of play style. So I'm gonna put it a little bit under the longsword, especially with the longsword's ranged focus attack. That's just so good. Like I think it's clearly a little bit better or easier to use than the katana, but the katana vastly changes with soul jades too. If you have the legendary soul jade with this thing, it's insane, and I would easily put it S tier, right? But we're talking about base katana without any like katana specific soul jades, then I think I will put it here. All in all, I still think the katana is extremely good. If anything, I will put it at low A. Okay, moving on to the spear. You know, some of y'all probably guessed it because I left a little gap here. So why do I think spear is the best weapon in the game? And it's mostly because of that dragon thrust ability. When you get a dragon thrust, you get a free spinning attack, which just does tons of damage. It might not be as great in threes when more people can like interrupt you, but in solos and 1v1s, it's so powerful that you can do that. And I think it does even more damage than I think total, if you land the Dragon Thrust and you land all the spinning attack, you might end up doing more damage than a charged Greatsword. So for one focus attack to do that much and to close that much distance, that's pretty insane. It's so good at tech chasing. And there's like another kind of like little reason I think it's really good. If they're just mashing left click on you and you press your parry timing as the same as you would the other weapons, you're gonna get hit because the focus attack has like an inherent delay to it. You could argue that it makes it weaker in some ways because then you could see it and then parry, but it can also catch people because of that weird timing. You also have to read whether or not they're doing just a regular focus attack on the third hit or if they're charging it for a Dragon Thrust. And I think like even if you dash, you might get hit by the Dragon Thrust. I think all in all, the spear is just absolutely amazing. Okay, moving on to the ranged weapons. These are kind of subjective. I also left out the ones that you find in like loot crates and whatnot. And with the ranged weapons, a lot of it is subjective. It's kind of just your personal preference which one you like. So the tier on these matter a lot less in my opinion, but I'm still gonna go over them just for completionist's sake. Let's start off with the musket. I'm just gonna put them behind the melee weapons because obviously having a melee weapon is more important than having a ranged weapon. So the musket is insane for at the end of the game when everyone's just like hiding in trees to just like check which trees they're in. It's easy to use. It does a ton of damage. All in all, just a solid range weapon. I don't think I have anything else more to say other than put in the A tier. I think the bow is probably the best range weapon in the game. Maybe only like this. I don't think it's actually S tier. I think maybe it just belongs in A tier with the musket, but like slightly above the musket. I think I just seen people have more success with the bow in general as far as the accuracy and power goes. So that's why I'm putting it slightly above the musket, but they do kind of the same thing. And like I said, it's just personal preference. The cannon, I think I'm gonna put in, God, the cannon's difficult. I heard they nerfed it from the first closed beta, which I didn't play. It's good and bad. I mean, I think it's very situational where it's good. So I think the fact that it is very situational, I don't like to put it in A tier. I think I'll put it in C, but you're not just gonna like murder someone off of having a cannon, you know? Whereas like, well, some of these other weapons, you can just end them with like a good headshot or something. So especially with like the repeater, which brings me to the repeater. I think it is a little more important than the musket. As a close range weapon, sometimes people are only one hit away and they start jumping away or grappling away. You're gonna be able to hit them with the repeater easier than like any other weapon in the game. The moment they grapple and they're stuck in the air in animation doing the grapple, you can just shoot them out of the sky. I think repeater just does so much damage. It definitely belongs in either A tier. I don't know if above or below the bow, but they're pretty much equal to me. And then lastly is the pistol. They did buff this from the previous beta, but I'm gonna still put it here. I think it's kind of a more close range gun and the charging takes forever. So I think with those negatives, it kind of does the same thing as a repeater. Like it's more like a shotgun than a pistol, right? So with that in mind, I think just like the ranges where it's effective, it's just so similar to the repeater. I'd rather just have that instant gratification of just whipping it out and blasting people rather than having to charge it. Anyways, that's pretty much all I had. All in all, I think this game is so balanced that it's honestly kind of hard to make a tier list. But if you're having trouble deciding like, oh, I want to play this character versus this character, then, you know, maybe this help you out. But anyways, I hope you still found this enjoyable, even if you don't agree with everything I said here. It's just for fun. I mean, it's beta. Everything is subject to change, right? As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.